Today, we're exploring the key ideas from Quit by Annie Duke. This is an independent educational overview enriched with our own integrative analysis and actionable exercises. Think of it as a guided reflection to spark your own insights, not a replacement for reading the book itself. The prevailing narrative of success often centers on unwavering determination, a relentless refusal to concede defeat. From tales of visionary entrepreneurs to athletes overcoming impossible odds, our culture lionizes grit as the ultimate virtue, celebrating those who push through adversity until they achieve their desired outcome. Conversely, the act of quitting is frequently branded with the stigma of weakness, a mark of failure or insufficient resolve. This pervasive societal perspective creates an insidious bias, subtly nudging us towards continued effort even when objective evidence suggests a different path. Yet this ingrained reverence for persistence conceals a critical, often destructive blind spot. While tenacity is undeniably crucial for worthwhile endeavors, an indiscriminate commitment to every path can lead to profound costs, wasted resources, missed opportunities, and diminished well-being. Modern understanding, informed by behavioral science, reveals that humans are inherently predisposed to over-persist, trapped by a cascade of cognitive distortions that cloud judgment and reinforce suboptimal decisions. Recognizing when to strategically disengage is not a defect of character, but an essential, sophisticated skill. It demands foresight, courage, and a willingness to defy conventional wisdom. Embracing the art of intelligent departure allows us to reclaim agency, reallocate precious resources, and ultimately steer our lives toward paths that genuinely promise greater fulfillment and success. The challenge lies in learning to discern between the truly valuable struggles that demand our enduring commitment and those that, having served their purpose or changed in nature, require a deliberate and strategic release. The lure of the sinking ship. The human mind, while capable of remarkable feats, harbors several cognitive traps that make strategic disengagement remarkably difficult. One of the most insidious is the escalation of commitment, a phenomenon where individuals and groups, already invested in a losing course of action, double down on their efforts, pouring more resources into it rather than cutting their losses. Imagine a small software startup that has invested 2 years and significant capital developing a niche social media application. Initial user feedback is lukewarm, market trends are shifting rapidly, and competitors are emerging with superior offerings. Despite clear signals that the product is failing to gain traction, the leadership team, having already committed so much, decides to launch a massive, expensive marketing campaign, convinced that more effort will turn the tide. This decision, rather than pivoting to a new idea or gracefully closing down, pushes the company further into an unrecoverable position, driven by the hope that the cumulative investment will eventually pay off. This impulse to persist, even in the face of mounting evidence of futility, underscores a profound, often destructive psychological blind spot. Central to this over-persistence is the sunk cost fallacy, the irrational tendency to factor past expenditures of money, time, or effort into future decisions, rather than basing choices solely on prospective costs and benefits. The fear isn't of future loss, but of wasting what has already been invested. Consider a graphic designer who has spent hundreds of hours creating a complex corporate logo for a client. Halfway through, the client changes their mind about the core concept, rendering much of the existing work irrelevant. Rationally, the designer should discard the old files and start fresh, billing for the new scope. However, driven by the desire not to waste the time already spent, they might try to awkwardly adapt the original design, producing a suboptimal result and incurring even more time, simply because they are unwilling to let go of the past effort. The money or time is already gone, a sunk cost. It cannot be returned. The only rational decision considers only the path forward. This fear of waste is deeply intertwined with loss aversion, a core principle of prospect theory, which posits that the psychological impact of a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. This bias fundamentally distorts our decision-making. When facing potential gains, people tend to be risk-averse, preferring a guaranteed smaller profit over a gamble that could yield more but also risks the current gain. This often manifests as prematurely abandoning promising ventures, the urge to quit while you're ahead, even if continuing offers a higher long-term expected value. Conversely, when confronting potential losses, individuals become risk-seeking, embracing gambles in the hope of avoiding a sure loss, even when the odds suggest an even greater overall deficit. This sure loss aversion compels us to stick when we're behind, desperately chasing a recovery that is statistically improbable, rather than accepting a controlled loss. The common advice to quit while you're ahead is, ironically, often misguided unless the underlying activity inherently has a negative expected value, like many forms of gambling. Its widespread acceptance only exacerbates our irrationality, causing us to abandon genuinely beneficial paths too soon. A parallel error occurs in personal finance. Many individual investors quickly sell their winning stocks to lock in profits, but cling tenaciously to their losing stocks, hoping for a rebound. This behavior, driven by loss aversion and the sunk cost fallacy, frequently leads to suboptimal portfolio performance, demonstrating that a decision to hold a losing asset is effectively a decision to rebuy it every day, despite better alternatives. Beyond these financial or project-based examples, our psychological biases extend to our possessions and established routines. The endowment effect reveals that we instantly value something we own more highly than an identical item we don't. Imagine inheriting a vintage bicycle. You might demand a much higher price for it than you would ever consider paying to purchase a similar one. This attachment extends to our ideas, decisions, and even the solutions we personally develop, a phenomenon known as the IKEA effect, where the act of creating something inflates its perceived worth. Further solidifying our resistance to change is status quo bias, our inherent preference for maintaining the current state of affairs. Deviating from the established path feels riskier, more burdensome, and requires more effort than simply continuing. We rationalize inaction, often framing it as not making a decision yet, when in reality, opting to continue is a very active decision with significant consequences. This preference is amplified by asymmetric loss aversion, where the potential negative outcomes of changing course are feared far more than the negative outcomes of merely staying put, even if the current path is demonstrably suboptimal. People often find it safer, from a reputational standpoint, to fail conventionally by following established norms than to risk an unconventional path. This is further complicated by omission-commission bias, where we tend to judge negative outcomes resulting from active decisions, commission, more harshly than equally negative outcomes resulting from inaction, omission. Thus, doing nothing often feels like the safer bet. These cognitive traps also reinforce themselves through a feedback problem. When we quit something, it typically fades from our conscious attention, and we rarely receive data on the hypothetical what-if scenario had we persisted. This lack of information makes it difficult to assess the quality of our quitting decisions, preventing us from learning and refining our approach. Conversely, when we continue, we often find ways to justify our persistence, further entrenching the behavior. Without deliberate intervention, these psychological forces conspire to keep us trapped on the sinking ship, convincing us that the next wave might just carry us to shore. The strategic navigator: when and how to disembark. The counterintuitive truth about effective disengagement is that quitting on time almost always feels like quitting too early. At the optimal moment to pivot or abandon a path, the situation is rarely a glaring catastrophe visible to all. Instead, it's a subtle shift, a creeping inefficiency, or a dawning realization that the future expected value has diminished. The critical skill here is mental time travel, the ability to project oneself into a range of plausible futures and rigorously assess the long-term prospects of a given endeavor. This foresight allows us to evaluate the expected value, not just in monetary terms, but across personal metrics like happiness, health, and relationship satisfaction. Consider a freelance writer who has been working on a passion project, a deeply researched historical novel, for 5 years. Despite the immense personal investment, the publishing landscape has shifted dramatically, and her genre is no longer in high demand. While she has made significant progress and loves the material, a dispassionate mental time travel exercise reveals that the odds of securing a publisher and achieving commercial success are now exceedingly low, and the time spent could be generating income or pursuing other creative ventures. Deciding to put the novel aside before receiving multiple rejections feels premature, even like a betrayal of her effort. Yet this too early feeling is precisely the indicator that she is making a strategic rather than reactive choice. She recognizes that continuing would turn it into a money pit of time and emotional energy. This internal calculation, recognizing when a path guarantees unhappiness or diminishing returns, often occurs before external markers confirm impending failure. A useful heuristic emerges here. If a decision between persisting and walking away feels like a close call, it's highly probable that quitting is the superior choice. Our ingrained biases typically push us to delay until a situation is well past its ideal quitting point before we even acknowledge it as a genuine dilemma. To proactively cultivate this skill, effective decision makers establish clear kill criteria. These are predefined objective signals or benchmarks that, if met, automatically trigger a reassessment or abandonment of a project. They act as a pre-commitment contract, insulating future decisions from emotional attachment and escalating commitment. A powerful technique for developing these criteria is the pre-mortem, imagining the project has definitively failed in the future and working backward to identify the early warning signs that would have predicted that failure. This helps uncover crucial indicators often overlooked in the heat of the moment. For instance, a tech startup might set a kill criterion. If we haven't achieved 10,000 active users, state, by the end of Q4, date, we will pivot to a different market or product concept. This specificity, combining a measurable state with a definitive date, provides actionable thresholds for strategic disengagement. Organizations that excel at innovation often embrace this proactive approach. Imagine a research and development lab focused on groundbreaking, high-risk projects. They adopt a monkeys and pedestals philosophy. Identify the single hardest, most unproven element of a project, the monkey, and tackle it first. There's no point in meticulously perfecting the easily achievable components, the pedestal, if the core breakthrough challenge proves impossible. By confronting the most significant unknowns early, they get to know faster, efficiently terminating unviable ideas before significant resources are wasted. For example, a team developing a new type of durable self-cleaning fabric might focus immediately on the complex chemical bonding necessary for self-cleaning properties, rather than spending months perfecting the fabric weave or color palette. If the chemical challenge can't be overcome, the project is stopped, regardless of how much time was spent on the initial weaving. Beyond proactively setting exit strategies, a crucial element of smart quitting is continuous exploration. Life is inherently uncertain, and relying on a single path, no matter how promising, leaves us vulnerable. Consider a university student specializing in a highly niche field with limited job prospects. While deeply committed to their studies, a wise approach involves continuous exploration, taking elective courses in adjacent disciplines, networking with professionals in diverse industries, or pursuing varied internships. These acts of wandering build a portfolio of options, creating backup plans and revealing potentially superior alternatives. This mirrors the behavior of ant colonies, where a consistent minority of explorer ants continue to forage for new food sources even when the colony has a stable supply. These explorers are vital, ensuring resilience against change and the discovery of better opportunities. Often, however, we are forced to quit by external circumstances, a job loss, a health crisis, or a market collapse. While initially painful, these forced quitting moments can be powerful catalysts. They clear the slate, breaking our default patterns and compelling us to re-evaluate our preferences and explore options previously obscured by our single-minded focus. A manager, abruptly laid off from a stable corporate job, might discover a hidden talent for entrepreneurship or a passion for a completely different field during their job search. What felt like an end becomes an unexpected redirection to a more fulfilling path. Proactively diversifying our interests, skills, and even our professional networks builds resilience, making these forced transitions less disruptive and voluntary shifts more feasible. Just as a diversified investment portfolio guards against market volatility, a diversified life portfolio protects against unforeseen personal and professional changes, ensuring we always have promising avenues to pursue. Breaking free, overcoming identity and external pressures. Perhaps the most formidable barrier to strategic quitting lies not in the objective merits of a situation, but in its deep entanglement with our sense of self. The hardest thing to quit is often who you are. Our identity, whether as a dedicated artist, a relentless entrepreneur, or a committed advocate, becomes inextricably linked to our endeavors. When new information challenges the viability of a project or path, it triggers cognitive dissonance, a profound psychological discomfort arising from the clash between our beliefs or actions and compelling contradictory evidence. Instead of accepting the new reality, we often engage in self-justification, denial, and distortion to protect our self-image as consistent, rational, and successful individuals. Consider a seasoned architect who has built a distinguished career specializing in ornate, traditional designs. As modern, minimalist trends dominate the industry, new commissions for his style dwindle. Despite a clear decline in his client base and increasing financial strain, he refuses to adapt his portfolio or learn new techniques. His identity as a master of classical aesthetics is so central to him that embracing a different style feels like a betrayal of his craft and himself. He rationalizes the market shift as a fleeting fad, clinging stubbornly to a declining niche, unable to separate his professional identity from the evolving demands of the market. This internal desire for consistency is often amplified by a fear of external judgment. We worry that quitting will be perceived by others, peers, family, employees, or investors as a sign of weakness or failure, making us even more likely to escalate commitment to a losing endeavor, even if it harms us. The irony is that the very desire to appear rational can make us behave more irrationally. This is particularly true for those who have taken extreme or non-consensus positions. Backtracking feels like a public admission of error, making it incredibly difficult. The relentless pursuit of a goal, while a powerful motivator, can inadvertently reinforce this over-persistence. Goals often possess a pass-fail nature. You either achieve them or you don't. This binary outcome fosters an intense aversion to closing mental accounts in the losses, making us perceive quitting as personal failure or a waste of prior effort. A long-distance runner training for a marathon might suffer a stress fracture weeks before the race. Despite excruciating pain, the goal of crossing the finish line might compel them to continue training, worsening the injury and prolonging recovery, rather than strategically resting and withdrawing. The inflexibility of such goals, originally set as a proxy for an expected value equation, renders them unresponsive to evolving circumstances, new information, or shifts in personal priorities. An intense focus on a singular goal can also induce myopia, blinding us to alternative opportunities or even obvious realities directly in front of us, preventing us from adapting to a shifting landscape. To navigate these deep-seated psychological and social currents, an objective, external perspective is often invaluable. This is where a quitting coach comes in, someone who genuinely cares about your long-term well-being and is prepared to deliver uncomfortable truths, prioritizing genuine kindness over mere niceness. This coach doesn't engage in futile arguments, but helps establish clear, measurable kill criteria for future performance. By setting these agreed-upon standards and scheduling a future review, they empower you to objectively assess progress and, if necessary, make the difficult choice to quit. This strategy, even if it extends a failing effort for a short period, ultimately saves significant time and resources by preventing prolonged, futile persistence. For a coaching relationship to be effective, both parties must grant explicit permission. The individual seeking advice must be open to candid feedback, and the coach must ensure this permission before offering blunt assessments. When advising others, a structured approach involves gently suggesting the idea of quitting, acknowledging their initial conviction, collaboratively establishing specific kill criteria, and agreeing to revisit the decision if those benchmarks are not met. This empowers individuals to reach the quitting decision themselves, armed with objective insight. In organizational settings, implementing a divide-and-conquer strategy, where those who initiate projects are distinct from those responsible for terminating them, can foster more rational decision-making, unburdened by past commitments. For individuals, a quitting coach provides this crucial separation. Ultimately, breaking free from the grip of identity and external pressures requires redefining our notions of success, failure, and waste. True success encompasses not just reaching arbitrary finish lines, but also following a sound decision process and valuing progress along the way. Waste should be reframed as a forward-looking problem. Continuing to invest resources in a venture that is no longer worthwhile is the true waste, not the resources already expended. By embracing quitting as a strategic act of reevaluation and adaptation, we gain the freedom to align our actions with our evolving goals and well-being. Integrative Analysis Implications. The pervasive glorification of persistence, while superficially appealing, masks a fundamental misunderstanding of how success is truly forged. This examination reveals that the capacity for strategic quitting is not a flaw, but a sophisticated, indispensable skill for navigating a dynamic world. Our innate human biases, from the seductive pull of sunk costs and the fear of loss, to the comforting embrace of the status quo, and the deep entanglement of our identity with our pursuits, conspire to keep us tethered to diminishing returns. We are wired to over-persist, often mistaking tenacity for wisdom, and finding ourselves unwilling to close mental losses, even when the future offers a clearly superior expected value elsewhere. The profound implication is that true success in life, career, and personal growth hinges not on an indiscriminate refusal to give up, but on intelligent discernment. It demands the foresight to recognize when a path, however passionately embarked upon, is no longer serving its purpose or aligning with our evolving well-being. This requires cultivating mental time travel, the ability to project future outcomes and objectively assess expected value, and challenging the intuitive feeling that quitting on time feels too early. It means embracing the discomfort of walking away before external evidence screams failure, thereby preserving precious resources for more promising endeavors. The practical application of this understanding involves proactive strategies. Defining clear kill criteria with measurable states and dates transforms emotional dilemmas into objective decision points, acting as pre-commitment contracts against our biased impulses. Adopting a monkeys and pedestals approach ensures we tackle the most critical unknowns early, rapidly validating or invalidating ideas before deep investment. Crucially, fostering a mindset of continuous exploration and diversification builds resilience, creating a portfolio of options that mitigates risk and expands opportunities, preventing us from becoming myopically fixated on a single, potentially outdated goal. Ultimately, the journey to becoming a strategic quitter is a journey of self-awareness and courage. It involves confronting the ego's reluctance to admit error, detaching our identity from specific outcomes, and distinguishing between genuine commitment to a cause and mere stubbornness. It requires recognizing that the waste of past effort is a forward-looking problem. The real waste lies in continuing to pour resources into an unviable future. Surrounding ourselves with objective truth-tellers, like a quitting coach who offers genuine kindness over superficial niceness, provides an invaluable external perspective to break free from our self-imposed binds. Embracing strategic quitting liberates energy, time, and mental capacity, allowing for purposeful reallocation towards endeavors with genuinely higher potential. It's about optimizing a life, not simply finishing what was started. It transforms forced setbacks into catalysts for reinvention and allows for the graceful abandonment of paths that no longer serve, making space for new growth, innovation, and deeper fulfillment. In a world of infinite choices and finite time, the power to intelligently let go is not merely a virtue, it is a prerequisite for a well-lived, adaptive, and truly successful life. Actionable exercises. 1. The kill criteria contract. Choose one ongoing project, goal, or personal commitment you're currently pursuing. Now, perform a pre-mortem. Imagine it's a year from now, and this endeavor has utterly failed. What were the early warning signs that, in hindsight, you should have recognized? List at least 3 to 5 specific objective indicators. Based on these warning signs, establish 2 to 3 kill criteria using the state and date method. These are measurable conditions or benchmarks linked to a specific time frame that, if met, indicate it's time to reevaluate or quit. For example, if I haven't achieved measurable milestone by specific date, I will pivot, stop. Or, if my key metric, example, energy levels, profit, user engagement, drops below threshold for X period, I will reassess. Write these criteria down and share them with a trusted friend or mentor. This acts as a pre-commitment contract, helping you overcome future biases and stick to your plan. Schedule a review date to honestly assess if any criteria have been met. Heading 2. Your expected value reality check. Think about an area in your life where you feel stuck or are pouring significant resources, time, money, emotional energy into something that isn't yielding the desired results. First, list all the resources you've already invested. Acknowledge them and then consciously set them aside. These are sunk costs and cannot be recovered. Your decision today should only be about what happens from this moment forward. Now, practice mental time travel. Imagine two distinct futures. Future A, you persist. What is the most likely long-term outcome if you continue down this path for another 6 to 12 months? Be brutally honest about the costs, stress, lost opportunities, financial drain, and potential benefits. Future B, you quit. What opportunities would open up if you freed these resources? What other paths could you explore? What would your well-being look like? Be specific. Evaluate the expected value of each future. Which path truly offers the highest potential for happiness, well-being, growth, or desired outcome, factoring in all aspects of your life? Remember, if it feels like a close call, your inherent bias might be telling you to persist when quitting could be the better choice. 3. The Identity Reframe Challenge. Identify a significant commitment that you're struggling to let go of, perhaps because it's become intertwined with who you are, e.g., I'm a founder, I'm a specific profession, I'm a loyal member of X group. Write down how this commitment defines you. What fears arise if you were to quit? E.g., I'd be a failure, people would think I gave up, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Acknowledge these feelings. They are real. Now, challenge your cult of identity. Ask yourself, is my core identity truly dependent on this specific endeavor or on my qualities, e.g., creativity, dedication, problem-solving, caring? Reframe your identity. Instead of, I am a specific role in this struggling venture, try, I am someone who is dedicated, resilient, and resourceful, and I choose to direct those qualities towards endeavors with the highest potential for impact and personal fulfillment. Practice speaking this new identity to yourself and close friends. See how it feels to separate your inherent worth from the outcome of a particular project. This mental shift makes it easier to quit strategically without feeling like you're quitting yourself. 4. Test your monkey first. Choose a new project, goal, or major initiative you are considering starting, or one that is currently in its early stages. First, identify the pedestals. What are the easy, known, or comfortable parts of this project? E.g., setting up a website, creating a logo, brainstorming, buying equipment. These are important, but not critical for proving viability. Next, identify the monkey. What is the single hardest, most uncertain, or make-or-break aspect that if it fails means the entire endeavor won't work? This is the core unproven assumption. E.g., can I actually sell this product? Will this specific technology even work? Can I maintain this demanding schedule long-term? Design a small, rapid experiment or action specifically to test the monkey before investing significant resources in the pedestals. How can you prove or disprove this hardest part as quickly and cheaply as possible? Execute your monkey test. Be prepared to get to know faster. If the monkey proves too difficult to train, celebrate the early learning and free your resources for a better opportunity. Don't build the pedestal if the monkey won't perform. 5. The unbiased advisor call. Identify a significant life decision or ongoing commitment where you feel torn between persisting and quitting. This could be a career path, a major project, or a personal relationship. Now, choose your unbiased advisor. This should be someone who genuinely cares about your long-term well-being, is wise and perceptive, and, crucially, isn't afraid to give you tough feedback. Make sure they don't have a vested interest in your decision, only in your best outcome. Explicitly grant them permission to be brutally honest. Say something like, "I'm struggling with situation, and I need your frank, objective opinion, even if it's hard to hear. I promise to listen without defensiveness." Explain your situation, including your doubts, fears, and hopes. Share what you've already invested. Then ask for their honest assessment. Based on what you know, do you think I'm still on the right path, or am I over-persisting? What would you do if you were in my shoes, looking at this with fresh eyes? What kill criteria would you set for this if you were me? Listen actively to their perspective. You don't have to agree instantly, but truly consider their insights. This external viewpoint can cut through your biases and provide invaluable clarity. That wraps up our exploration of today's book. If even one idea here gave you something to reflect on, give it a like so YouTube knows to share more with you. And if you'd like the next insight in your feed, hit subscribe. Remember, what you heard today is our independent interpretation, enriched with analysis and exercises. The full book has far more depth, so consider reading it to experience the author's work directly. Thanks for listening to DeftU Insights, where we turn great books into tools for growth.